Why do we want to merge these two? Because robotics does not have the capability of becoming smarter, while AI is not optimized for interacting with the hardware.
So this is one of your drone strikes.
Yeah. I moved back to Germany in 2014 with the goal to join the German armed forces.
What was the motivation?
The second Bali bombing happened actually in the restaurant of my very best friend. I was very angry of the people who did it, but also angry of the world for not doing anything. I decided, all right, how can I contribute my life to fight global terrorism? So my first milestone was actually algorithms and data structure. What do you need in order to understand that? First, you really need to know.
How was it like being in the special forces?
So the process goes from 9 months to X years. There's only one rule, is that you cannot quit. I still remember in the Höllenwoche or Hell Week, they gave everyone a red card. So if you pull out the red card, that's it. You will never be invited ever again in your life. Wow. Basically, CODE taught me how to learn rather than what to learn.
Did you learn programming at any point?
Zero programming. But the mentality from being a special force candidate, I really studied for around 80 to 90 hours a week.
How do I know if I like something or not?
The first sign will be...
Who is Nino Lindenberg? For someone who is watching this for the first time, maybe they saw an interesting thumbnail and they are wondering, should I watch this or not? And since we are going to be talking about what you do, especially with the drone industry and everything, what could you say about yourself, who you are, and what exactly you do?
Yeah, good question. So Nino Lindenberg is half Balinese, half Berlin. And I moved back to Germany in 2014 with the goal to join the military special force, and mostly from the German armed forces. And I started my journey in Germany actually without even speaking German. And I still remember I started working for Indonesian restaurants. That's where I kind of like, collecting all the experience, speaking with German people directly in the restaurants, while also on the side doing my A-level, because the Indonesian A-level is not acknowledged within the European Union.
So you said, from what I know, you moved to Germany in 2014.
Yes.
Is that right? Yes. To Berlin?
Yes, to Berlin.
Wow. So did you move specifically to study or to work, or what was the motivation?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this before off camera, but in 2002 and 2005, there were two Bali bombings. And due to this terrorism, a lot of people died. Some of them are actually family members that I personally knew, and some of them just tourists in Bali, which actually has a bigger effect on the economy of the whole country. So this has a big effect on my generation, at least. So that's why I decided, all right, how can I contribute my life to fight global terrorism? And my mom jumped in and she mentioned, all right, you're also come from Germany. So maybe you should explore a little bit your opportunity in Germany, because Germany just has a bigger stage in the international military, I would say, rather than Indonesia at that time. And that's why I decided, all right, I'm going to pursue this. Everybody laughs at me, right? You're not going to be there, because I did not speak German. And then 2014, I just moved back to Germany.
So before moving into Germany, you mentioned the Bali bombings. I mean, I'm pretty young, but I'm just trying to picture what was going through your mind at that point in time, especially losing relatives and being there in the midst of it all. Like, how was it and how did you survive?
Yeah, it was quite scary, actually. The second Bali bombing happened actually in the restaurant of my very best friend. And it was very scary. I was very angry of the people who did it, but also angry of the world for not doing anything. And I guess that affects my life a lot. And that's, I think, the turning point of my life where a little boy change into someone who has motivation to achieve something. I think that's my turning point.
So after that, you moved to Berlin, no knowledge of German, new country, new environment for the first time, trying to create something, basically, if I should put it that way. And right now, I mean, I read a bit about your background. You moved to Germany. You were a candidate for the Bundeswehr Special Forces. You were at Zuspringer, Frite. You co-founded and founded a number of startups, especially Pleno, which I'm really curious for us to get into and everything. What would you say accounted for that shift? Because someone who has been through such a traumatic experience with the bombings and everything, moving here with no knowledge of the language, because that's very important, and being able to create something for yourself, being able to build and contribute to like several companies, what accounts for that?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because I think at some point when you are living inside a box, you're just very used to the environment inside the box, right? So for me, something that you mentioned as trauma is actually not trauma at all from my perspective, which became quite normal, I would say. But when I moved here, everything changed. I learned how life within I don't want to say that Indonesia was not a working, did not have any working political system, because they do, but Germany is just very much on a different level. Like Germany has been hosting me pretty nicely, because I'm also partly German, but I don't take it granted, because I'm just not used to this kind of life. And yeah, I think it's the motivation to contribute for the fight, or for the peace of many people, I think. But it's also shifted throughout my journey. So I started working in an Indonesian restaurant here in Berlin. I started by mopping floors 2 weeks, and then I became barista, and I was working in the kitchen. I did that for 2 years while getting my A-level diploma.
And as of that time, you still couldn't speak German fluently.
On the side, I learned German on the side. I started to get A1, A2, right, until the C1 certificates, so that I can go through, so that I can actually take part in the selection program for the military officer pass selection program. Yeah.
And you actually got into the military, right?
I did. I served 4 years. Yeah.
4 years?
Yeah.
How was the application process? And like when you got in, how was the whole thing like? Because I mean, your background, as you've already spoken about, and in this new environment, having a vision to be part of the army, putting in the work, learning the language, actually getting in. I'm kind of curious, like, because I don't think it was all a walk in the park. How was it when you actually got into it?
So one thing that I learned about Germany is that they love paperwork. There are tons of paperwork, which is fine. It's just you just need to sit down and read about it and do it. But on the other side, as someone who I would say myself not native German speaker, there's always the needs to update and upgrade your language skill so that you can actually understand. Because imagine that you are in a battlefield with your squad, because you're the officer and you need to command them to do something, but you don't understand what they're talking about. This just doesn't make any sense, right? You put everyone in danger, basically. So what I did was I went to local recruitment office here in Berlin, talked to them a bit. They were very nice. They showed me around. They told me how the process looks like, what's the minimum requirement of German that you need able to join. And then you just send the application to their headquarters, and then you will get an email, an invitation basically for 1 or 2 days test directly in their headquarter office for officer selection program in Cologne, Cologne, West Germany. Yeah. And they're very interesting test, I would say. So there's mathematics, there's logics, there are language as well, right? And then there are health tests, there's sport tests, everything compiled together, and that's what makes a good officer, is that when you can hit their standard, basically. And then you get an offer, whether a direct offer or you wait for their answer, basically. And then they offer you whether you can study or not, depending on how you perform on an exam. So I got an offer with a study program. So I studied political science during the 2.5 years as being officer candidate, and then I switched to the special force candidate. Yeah.
Okay, so at what point did you decide to transition into tech? Because like right now with Pleno, AI, automation, co-founding startups, being a CEO, someone who came from your background, learns the language, had a tough time initially, and then wanted to join the special forces, worked hard, actually got in, and you decided to give all of that up and like go into tech. What was the motivation for that?
Yes. So I did the full process of selection program of the special force in 2019. And I watched the Tesla AI Day. And I was thinking like, holy shit, there is technology like this out there and I don't even know about it, right? And that was my turning point on thinking like, all right, I think this could also be interesting in my next career move. But at that time, I was still focused on passing what they call the Hell Week. So Hell Week is the hardest selection program that can be legally done within democracy. And that's partially for the Army Special Force in Germany. But then COVID hit. So when COVID hit, some of the program was postponed. First, it was postponed 3 months, and then 6 months, and then 9 months. And I turned 30 in 2020. So waiting, not knowing, imagine in 2020, you don't know where COVID will stop, right? Because it just started. So I just thought, all right, the worst case scenario, I'm not going to I don't have the opportunity again to do the whole program. And then I'm not going to be the special, commando soldier. I'm going to do the normal stuff as an officer. But that's not why I'm in Germany. I keep reminding myself I'm in Germany because I want to join the special force or nothing at all. And that's where I decided, all right, if I cannot join within this period, I'm out.
So before we even move on into like you getting into tech and software engineering and a developer, how was it like being in the special forces? Like, were you sent on any missions, and how was it like, or was just the training program?
It was just, so we need to understand what does it mean being a special force a candidate, right? So it's not something that you come one day, you get tested, and then that's it, you're in or you're out. So the process goes from 9 months to X years. There's only one rule, is that you cannot quit. So I still remember in the Hell Week, they gave everyone a red card. So if you pull out the red card, that's it. You quit. You will never be invited ever again in your life.
Wow.
So you either, I don't know, die before you quit, let's say, or you're not going to get invited anymore.
Did any thoughts ever cross your minds like, I'm just done with this, I want out?
To be honest, there was one specific station. It's actually in YouTube as well. If anyone is interested, look it up. It's called KSK Höllenwoche or Hell Week, and it was the legendary station where everyone has a bark of tree of 25 kilogram, and that's on top of your equipment, which is already around 30 to 40 kilograms with boots. It's very different to run with shoes or boots.
Yeah.
You need to put it on top, and there's only like a rope as a grip, and then you need to walk upstairs, which I thought, all right, maybe upstairs when you watch on the video, it's going to be like 500 or 1 kilometers, but actually it's more than around 4 upwards kilometers. And when I reach on the top, that's it. That's the ultimate climax of any soldier, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, shifting into tech. So you left the special forces after everything, and at what point did you come to Code University?
I joined CODE in 2020. So I think my selection program was in around February or March, and then I joined directly in winter semester 2020.
Yeah. What is Code? Like maybe someone has probably never heard about it before. And how did you hear about it? How is the educational system there like? And how did it influence you? Did it have an impact on you as a person?
Yes. So it's kind of like a hate-love relationship, I would say, because I
In all
really,
sense.
yeah, I'm really grateful of CODE because CODE was my only path to study something that is technical within Germany. Because as I mentioned at the beginning, I did my German A-level in Studienkolleg in Free University Berlin. But since I already had a real A-level from Indonesia, which includes mathematics, biology, and etc., I was trying to take a shortcut to take the easiest course, which is the social course. So I took the social course, and the result is that with that certificate, I cannot study anything that is technical. I can only study maximum psychology that has something to do with math, for example. And CODE did not care about that. And they said, look, if you pass our selection program, you're in.
So what's Code? And how was it like when you joined?
Yeah, at CODE University is an innovative university that offers students project-based study program, I would call it, where student needs to learn and work within their own curiosity. That really, which means that if you're curious about something, you're gonna need to work towards it in terms of a project.
Okay, so like in a team setting, basically.
You can have a solo project, you can have a team project, but as long as it is a combination of theory and practical, and that's where you are going to be examined, basically.
So you applied for Code in 2021.
Yeah.
2020. That's after the pandemic, and you got in. So did you have any knowledge of like tech or programming? Because I'm imagining like for you to have been able to build most of these companies, become a CTO for most of them, how was your knowledge of programming like? Because from what I remember, you left Indonesia after the wars. You came to Berlin, you were working at this restaurant and everything, joined the army, went through that stressful routine and everything, and you found out about code. Did you learn programming at any point, or like how did you?
Zero programming. The longest time that I sat in front of my laptop was 30 minutes inside the military time, right? That's before code.
Yeah.
But so maybe this is also something that could apply to some people. So I'm a little bit older than the general students here, right? I bring some mentality that probably my younger self even would not have by the time, which is kind of like, I know where I want to go. Since end of 2019, I was already very interested in AI before LLM, before ChatGPT. So I knew directly I want to do AI. I want to be expert in everything related to data. And through code, basically code taught me how to learn rather than what to learn. And that's what I use in the sense that I think one of the first session was learning how to learn.
Okay.
And I think this is very important, and a lot of people actually not taking seriously on their capability of learning and understanding how can I learn in an optimal way.
Okay, so from what you're saying, before code, you were curious about AI, you knew what you wanted to do and everything, but maybe your learning approach was not ideal. So what exactly did you learn through that learning how to learn program or something that
Yeah.
drones?
I learned to get dirty, basically. Get my hand dirty. The first thing that I remember is one of our professor, Adam. So he was the one that taught me how to code, actually, at the very, very beginning. Something that I learned the first time is how to manage what you learn and create kind of like time schedule.
Okay. Can we dive more
Yeah.
in depth into that? When you say manage how to learn, I mean, most people have heard of maybe like a personal timetable or something, but I'm sure it's beyond that. Maybe if you could break it down like 3 steps, what would be?
Sure. So since maybe just also to understand what I brought actually into the university, right? Because not everyone was in the military and brought a bit of money, let's say. And so I got the privilege that I did not need to work for a certain amount of time, right? So I was focusing on learning only. But the mentality from being a special force candidate was the one that I benefited the most, because I really studied for around 80 to 90 hours a week. And that's where the time management comes in. So you really need to, first, you need to understand, okay, what are the foundation knowledge that you need in order to reach your first milestone. So my first milestone was actually algorithms and data structure, right, which is very fundamental for computer science. Now, what do you need in order to understand that? First, you really need to know programming language, right? So that's the most fundamental thing, because without that, you cannot really move forward without writing code. Or maybe pseudo code, but that's not fun, I would say. So I learned Python for maybe 3 days a week. And then the rest 3 days, I learned math, for example, because I feel mathematics is something that I used to love when I was in high school. And I stopped learning it for quite some times. And then now I have the opportunity to learn again. And that's what I did. So 3 days of math, 3 days of programming, and 1 day only reading about data structures. That's what I did in the first 6 months, maybe. Yeah.
So you spoke about your background, like coming to code, teaching yourself how to program, spending 80 to 90 hours a week, learning data structures and everything. And now you have a successful company that's Pleno. So you make autonomous systems to direct the drones, from what I understood, right?
Yes. So what we are building is a hardware agnostic software, where there is an algorithm or where we are trying to merge the algorithm from 2 different study fields, which is artificial intelligence, more specifically the deep learning part, it's called deep reinforcement learning, and the robotics on our feet. Now, why do we want to merge these two, right? Because in AI has an algorithm that mostly the learning subfield of AI, that deep learning, right? It is an algorithm that gets smarter the more you have data. But robotics does not have this type of algorithms. Robotics algorithms, they are optimized for interacting or integrated into hardware. So it means that with robotics algorithm, you can manipulate and set up some kind of like, depending on the use case, you can build a program to move your robots, whatever it is, ground robots, air robots, right, water robots. Yeah. And that's where we want to merge the 2 of them, because robotics does not have the capability of becoming smarter, right? While AI is not optimized for interacting with the hardware. Yeah. And we want to merge those 2 inside our embedded software that we deploy into what we call single board computer that sits on top of the drone.
Okay, so this is one of your drones, right?
Yeah. This is our MD team. Okay, AZD.
And maybe walk me through exactly how you went about building it, and what exactly you do when it comes to building these autonomous systems to control them. Because you mentioned something about in Ukraine, the fact that most of the manually controlled UFVs were failing. So maybe talk about what exactly Pleno does.
Yeah, so that was the initial problem in Ukraine that we picked up is 9 out of 10 were did not manage to fulfill the job, right? So we decided, all right, how can we actually solve the problem in terms of making sure that the mission is actually accomplished. Now the idea is that so for our MBT we built the drone, but basically all the parts as you see there, we bought it from one of our partner, I would say, in Checo, basically. Yeah. So that is called the 10-inch FPV drone. So FPV from first person view drone, right? Yeah. And a lot of the part is a DIY part, right? Actually. So there is a very famous brand called Raspberry Pi. So it's a UK company, and we use 2 cameras only, and the camera costs like around $40-50. So you need to understand autonomous system. You cannot compare this FBT product, which is very low cost. So the whole system costs like 400 to 500 euro. Yeah, you cannot compare this to product from, for example, Unreal, right, or Shield AI. They are tackling basically the high end part of the market, and we started with providing the very low cost solution. Now our software lives inside the Raspberry Pi, inside the there's also that. But it's called a single board computer.
So that's the microcontroller.
It's not a microcontroller; it's a processor action. So the Raspberry Pi itself. So microcontroller is inside the flight controller, right? So it is a microcontroller because it does not need that high computation, right? But it still needs to kind of like store a software, which is called an autopilot, right? That lives inside the control flight controller.
Those parts.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And autopilot has been around for a long time. You took a flight before, right? With airlines, so they also have autopilots, right? But the Raspberry Pi provides us the opportunity to host our software with a strong enough mini or single board computer, right? So that we don't need any connection to the internet. Right? So everything runs inside the Raspberry Pi, and what you are holding is called a hat, right? Which is just an extension board to put some extra processor. So you see the box on top of the hat?
Yeah.
That is actually a GPU.
Like NVIDIA.
Like NVIDIA, but this is from Halo. So Halo works together with the Raspberry Pi. This is their product. We don't have any incentive or build whatsoever from the hardware. That's what we learn. Hardware is hard, so we don't do it. We only do software. The idea is that to be very agnostic, that drone manufacturers and service providers don't even need to think how to integrate our software with their hardware.
Okay. But then, like, thinking of this Raspberry Pi and everything, you said these are like parts that you bought. So what makes Pleno unique? What stops anyone from deciding now, okay, I want to start the next Pleno? What makes your startup so unique in the field that you're operating in?
So what makes us unique is our approach to build the solution itself. So you can imagine a lot of the ready solution in the market, they tend to combine artificial intelligence and robotics algorithms in one software. This means that the barrier of entry is quite high because AI experts, this is what we learned throughout our experience in the food industry, is that AI experts rarely have that amount of knowledge in the robotics field, and so the other way around. So if you want to build an autonomous system, you need to have talents from both teachers, which costs you quite a lot of money, I would say. Now, our approach is to merge these two into one solution.
So how do you do that?
Yes. So how we do it is that we developed what is called the deep reinforcement learning agent. So reinforcement learning is one of the 3 paradigms in subfield of AI. So there are 4 subfields of AI, which is planning, reasoning and knowledge, learning, and then optimization. The learning part is where people also know as machine learning.
Yeah.
Right. And in machine learning, there are three techniques how you can teach the program to learn. So there's supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Now, reinforcement learning agent is optimized to find a way to maximize the returns or how to accomplish a mission instead of just finding pattern in data. That's the difference. That's our approach. So we are using a reinforcement learning agent trained in a high fidelity simulator. So we have a 3D simulator we built on top of NVIDIA Omniverse. And that's where we train our agent.
So you must have like a pretty big team, because how did you start and like actually you train the models yourself, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So how did you put together your team? How do you work on a day-to-day basis to actually develop this?
I think we always go back to the foundational management, I would say, right? So we work based on tickets, that I would say. And so every Sunday, we spend a couple of hours, let's say 2 hours, just to break down what problems we have this week that we can solve next week. And on top of that, I need to organize how does the development roadmap look like for next week. Right? This is possible. So I like to manage it on a more shorter period because of how dynamic the field where we are is in. Because if we plan it too long, and let's say we have a client who wants to work for I don't know, evacuation mission or a different mission, then we need to allocate our human resource, so our employees, right?
Yeah.
To actually work on the training of the agent for that particular mission. Sure, right? And that's how currently we work.
Okay. So I'm just thinking, what you mentioned there are other competitors in the industry, like some of those other startups and all that. What makes Pleno so different that it makes your products viable that you'll be able to scale in the next, like, say, 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So the idea of solving the problem from a very, I would say, deeply from the technological point of view is that if you have a program that is like a human soldier, right, then you can just train it for the next mission over and over again. You don't need to build the whole infrastructure for that soldier to train, let's say. And that's our approach. That's where we bet, actually. So we think that if we have an agent that can be retrained inside a simulator instead of every time using a physical testing, for example, or every time you need to change the source code every time, right?
Yeah.
Then the development time will be different. The accuracy, the maturity of your solution will be different. That's where our bet is. So we build once, and then we retrain based on the use case of our clients.
Okay, but what's the barrier of entry like into this specific industry? Because as you mentioned, not many people are involved in it. And like I was asking earlier, most people tend to develop like startups more geared towards consumer goods, but this is not your typical consumer brand like startup kind of thing. So what are the prospects that people would actually find, not people as such, but like governments or your target markets would actually want a demand for this?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, because when we started this, it's about how do you see the future, actually, or what future do you want to see? And we want to see a future where we can use AI not only for solving something that is digital, but actually something that is physical, solving something that is physical, because at the end of the day, we are a physical being.
Yeah.
Right. And we want to see more robots on the street doing autonomous stuff, solving problems, helping. The main point is that to benefit humans. Right. That's the future that we are aiming at. So in that, from that perspective, we want to put forward, even though it is hard, it is it is very hard. So the barrier of entry is very high. You really need to find someone that is good at both worlds, AI and robotics. And the thing about being a German startup is that a lot of universities, they actually have this called civil clause where they agreed as a university not to do any research or any connection to what they call how do you call it, like defense related use case technology, which makes it quite hard for us to get in touch with professors, for example, experts in the academic field, right? Not all universities, but I would bet some of most of them.
So why Germany? Why not San Francisco, like the Bay Area? Why are you still here? Or do you plan to move and expand to other markets eventually?
First, because I'm German, so I'm an ex German military, right? Personal. So I feel that the market here has more potential than anywhere else, because as you see now, defense spending started to be loaned away. Like Ursula von der Leyen just pitched 800 billion euro of spending for defense technology, right? And Europe needs it. Like, as much as I want to say, put all the money into research and education, we cannot avoid thinking on, we need to achieve a certain standard for our security, for our defense, just in case, right? We don't need to think, oh, we're gonna be a military state or something like that, but just reach the standard where we say, all right, if something happened, we have the answer to that.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So wrapping up, when you talk about startups, like you mentioned why you want to stay in Germany and everything. When you hear startups and like the startup markets, everyone's mind goes to San Francisco, Silicon Valley, the Bay Area. What's your take on the current startup ecosystem in Germany and how feasible it is for someone watching who wants to like actually start something to get it done? What kind of support is there? Did you get any support when you were starting?
Yes. That's an interesting question. I think I would answer it in two parts. So the first part is try to be a part of, if you really want to go to defense. So this is related to defense, right? Yeah. Or security, or drones, or like startups in general.
Yeah.
Which one? Like
startups in general.
Startup in general. Okay. So if you want to build a startup in general, then
in Germany or in Europe,
in Germany, I would say that there's plus and minus of being a German startup, because Germany, the name itself, already brings some credibility. So if you're saying, we are Berlin-based startup or German-based startup, right? It already brings some kind of the credibility. So that's the pros. I think because of the history of how German technology is, like manufacture and
engineering.
The cons are, the red tape, right? A lot of paperwork. It's very hard to navigate, basically. But they're building on that. But nevertheless, I would suggest to really dive into trying to find problems on a daily basis, problems that is affecting a lot of people, right? Once you have that problem, tries to really focus on putting everything together in kind of like trying to put the pieces together, right? Once then you can define your ICP, so ideal customer profile, right? And then you just reach out to as many ICPs as possible. I would suggest from LinkedIn, and use Dripify, right, to kind of like engage. You can send Dripify. So Dripify is a software platform where you can create pipelines on how to engage with your customers or potential customers in LinkedIn, and you just set it on. It's just sending it to all your target ICPs, right? And then you do an interview, makes it very short, like 15 minutes, right? Don't go over because people get bored and they're not concentrated a lot. So make sure it's short, make sure you're prepared your answer, make your answer quantifiable, right? Don't ask some abstract question like very hard for you to quantify it later on. So ask quantified questions, and also always have what is the action, the ask we call it, at the end of every interview. So do you want to meet, and do you want to go to the next meeting? Do you want to offer a proposal? What do you want to do at the end of the meeting? So that the potential customer or the interviewees actually knows, all right, this is going to be the next step.
Yes. Okay, great. So finally, based on your story and like everything we've spoken about so far, what would you say, what would be your advice to someone who is thinking of, okay, I have an idea, I found a community, I found an opportunity, I want to build this. What's your ideal journey, if I should say, not customer journey, but like startup founder journey, from having an idea, building, finding funding, and all that? What would that step-by-step process be?
So it always depends. So so if you wanna start a company, there's always the flash, there's always the cash flow that you need to think about, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have cash, then let's say it was your hobby basically. But cash flow does not need to come from investors only. Can also come from the customers, right?
How do you find customers? And
yes, so you find customers by putting the piece together related to the problem, right? So this is always, I will always go back to finding the right problem, right? Because only from the problem you can see who is affected by that problem, and if that is a real problem that they will want to buy.
What if they've never heard about your products before? How do you put your products in front of them?
Yeah, very good question. Because at the very beginning, you don't have a product. So what you're selling is actually the vision or the dream, right? The idea. That's what you're selling. And never try to sell something. So this is one thing that I find really the most valuable thing, is that never try to sell something. And there is one sentence that, if I may share from Martin Schilling, is that if you ask for advice, you'll get money. If you ask for money, you get advice, right? So to investor, you never ask that never ask for their money. Try to understand their perspective on what company do they want to invest in, right? And but of course you need to be genuinely interested in them, right? Because they will be your partner if they invest in you, right? And from the customer point of view, you never sell. Ask them about their experience, ask them about their current solution that they're using, right? And then you build up from there until the moment where you need to offer for the customer, offer some kind of like paid pilot projects. Paid pilot project is kind of like the first step where you say, all right, this is a real problem and there is a buyer. We might have a case for a startup. Yeah.
Okay. So say I'm a student, I have an idea. I don't know where to find investors or where to find people to put my product in front of. Like, I don't know anything. I just have my LinkedIn connection and I have probably, 50 people, 50 connections. I don't even have any followers or something. How do I take my idea from an idea to something that is valuable?
Yeah. So if you're not well connected, I would say you're very new, right? So first of all, LinkedIn is a very, very nice platform to put yourself mostly and your idea out there, right? LinkedIn. Secondly, you need to do a bit of research on what is the startup ecosystem in your local place, basically. So for example, here in Berlin, we have Techstars, right? We have CODE. CODE is Künstliche Intelligenz Zentrum.
Yeah.
And CODE is kind of like the local institution or organization they have 3 different programs: bridge to market, incubation, and acceleration programs that can help you to bring your idea into the market, basically, right? So do research. What does your local ecosystem look like? And if you know, then you just reach out. Just reach out. Just reach out bluntly, right? You need to block that chemical substance that makes you feel embarrassed, right? You cannot have embarrassed, like you cannot be embarrassed, basically, because you just need to be bold and ask ethical questions and be genuine. Ethical will help you.
Okay. So assuming I don't know like how to send I don't know how to connect to people, what would be your ideal template? Let's say I've found a new connection. I want to tell them about my products.
Okay.
How will I go about it?
So my template is that hi, I'm X. Great to connect with you, right? And then I will directly look. I'm interested in the field of X, let's say, and I see that you are also, or you were part of a company, or you were working in here in this field, or your interest is this, right? I'd really love to learn from your experience and ask for your advice.
Yeah.
Right. And then you say, let's meet. This is my link. You can, book slots, with your convenience, at your convenience. That's it. People would love to talk to you if you are not selling stuff. This is what I learned throughout my journey.
Okay. So if there's a question I've not asked you that you think someone should be asking you or should be asking any founder out there, what would that be and what's your answer? So
maybe whether they should be founder or not.
Okay. How does one know if they should or shouldn't be a founder?
It would be good if you want to be a founder, it would be good if you approach another founder, because we are very open to talk, right? And just ask them, like, how is it to be a founder? And because there is a sacrifice that you need to make if you want to become a founder, like time. Time is very valuable. It is something that, the only free goods that commodity that you have, where you can make it fruitful or useless, basically, right?
Yeah.
So you need to sacrifice time. Time means that you will meet your family less, for example. You will have less social life, right? And you just have a different priority, I would say.
Okay. So you need to have time. What's two?
You need to have fun. You need to have you need to have a clear vision of what you wanna solve, basically. Yeah, because even if you have the time, but you don't like what you're solving, it would be very hard for you every day, waking up at 7 a.m., doing the same over and over and over again, talking to customers about the same topic.
Yeah.
It would be very hard for you to do it.
How do I know if I like something or not?
The first sign would be time passes by just like that. You wake up, you do your sport activity, and you start working, and then suddenly it's just 7 p.m. That's when you know that those time actually passes by without.
So basically, if I'm truly passionate about something, the time is not really a constraint. Like, I just find myself so invested in it that I'm willing to just keep going over and over again. And then you also said meeting a founder who you can learn from and just learning as much as you can, sacrificing time and everything else. Is there anything else? Is there any other thing that I should focus on?
No, I think nothing. That's it.
Okay. Then I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was great talking to you and looking forward to hearing what Pleno does in changing the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much.